Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Culture, Leisure and Sport Decision Meeting. Welcome to our guests in the gallery today who are doing some intern work with CLNS, so it's nice to have you here. Welcome to the news as well. And welcome all. It's probably most useful if we go around the table and explain who we all are, since the public are able to watch. So my name is Councillor Steve Pitt, and I am the Cabinet Member for Culture, Leisure and Sport.
I'm Lisa Gallagher from Democratic Services.
Claire Looney, Commissioning and Partnership Manager.
Lindy Elliott, Libraries and Archives.
I'm Felicity Wood and I'm the Public Participation Officer at the D-Day Story.
Jane Mee, Museums and Visitor Services.
Sue Page, Finance Manager.
Councillor Jonas, Group Spokesperson for the Conservatives.
Thank you all. We have apologies today from the Labour Culture, Leisure and Sport spokesperson, Councillor Stephen Morgan. Okay, declarations of members' interest, are there any? No, there are not, which is fantastic. So we're straight on to item 3, and that's the D-Day story and the D-Day 75th anniversary. And I think we have an update from Claire Looney and Felicity. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll start off and then hand over to Claire if that's all right. Okay, so the purpose of the report is to outline our plans for heritage activities connected to the 75th anniversary of D-Day and a potential commemoration programme as a national hub for activities to mark this very significant anniversary. So we recommend that you agree the D-Day story should work with local and international partners to lead the heritage activities connected to the 75th anniversary of D-Day, and to seek authority to continue to liaise with the MOD on the position of Portsmouth in the programme of commemorations. So Portsmouth played a very significant role in the conflict and on D-Day itself, primarily due to our role as a naval base. And following the D-Day story's £5 million transformation, the museum reopened in March 2018. There is also a programme of activities designed to get more and a wider range of people engaged with the museum, and that runs until 2021. We're also working in partnership with the National Museum of the Royal Navy to bring a landing craft tank to the museum in 2019. So there's 4 sections of activities, and those are projects that form part of the HLF activity plan. So we've got quite a range of things from working with Unlock, a local youth organisation, to get young people designing events at the museum. We're going to co-host an international conference with Portsmouth University. We're going to hire a young person as an intern to help local people uncover their D-Day heritage as well. There is the landing craft tank project, and we've had a really good positive response from people that we've gone out to and spoken about the project. There's a huge amount of interest from visitors. We've got a loan from the Royal Collection, so that's 12 portraits of D-Day veterans to go on display in Portsmouth Museum. And the commemorative events programme, which I will hand over to Claire to talk about.
Just on the events programme, currently we have had a number of meetings with senior personnel from the MOD to look at what that commemorative programme might be. Their major focus and work with the Royal British Legion is to support veterans going to Normandy for what they perceive will probably be the last time those veterans are wanting to go or able to go. However, they are key to ensure that Portsmouth has a significant role in that programme, and the discussions we've been having to date have been trying to establish what that would be, what resources would be on the table, and to have some broader discussions about how that programme might be influenced. Without doubt, they understand the importance that the city plays in that story, and we are obviously keen to ensure that we are marking that in an appropriate way with both veterans, the few that wish to come here, as well as those that may also then be going over to an embarkation point over to France for the Normandy commemorations.
Thank you both. Any questions from Councillor Jonas? Okay, both those items are approved then. Thank you both very much for presenting this morning. Okay. Okay, on to item 4 on the agenda, and that is an update report from Bookfest.
Lindy Elliott speaking for Claire Forsyth, who originated the report. The report basically gives an update on the 2018 festival that took place in February and March this year. On top of that, it's giving some background to the last 8 years of Bookfest and some clarity about how the festival has got to the point it has at the moment. Broadly speaking, it was a very successful festival this year. There was some significant learning which informs the recommendations. We were caught by the beast from the east, and events towards the end of the festival were either poorly attended or had to be cancelled because of the weather. But other than that, there was significant learning, particularly in terms of creative writing, and our ability to support people interested in that sort of activity across the city. So with that in mind, the recommendations are to utilise Arts Council England funding to develop the short story competition. This has run for the last 2 years, and in the year ahead with Arts Council funding, we're seeking to put short story competitions, creative writing opportunities into schools, and that will be a significant new opportunity. To deliver a second publishing event following the success of the 2018 event. And it was particularly and quite outrageously acceptably good this year. And we're really pleased to be able to work with providers in the city and in the region to support creative writers and the publishing both online and in hard copy book. And there's clearly an opportunity there to support culture. To utilise Arts Council England funding to develop audiences both in Portsmouth and further afield, and building a visual publicity campaign. We are reaching a lot of people. We aren't necessarily reaching the breadth and range of people that we would like to. And this was an original aim of Bookfest, to get to places that other book festivals perhaps don't. So with that additional funding, there are a number of campaigns for this year, and develop more in events and workshops for young people particularly.
Thank you very much, Lindy. Any questions from Councillor Jonas? Just to add to that, Bookfest is a fantastic thing, and obviously the aspiration to continue to move the focus towards getting out to those harder to reach communities and engaging a wider group of people is absolutely key, and a focus of other things that we've been having conversations around, the summer reading challenge and things like that as well. So Bookfest has a very important role to play in that, and I know that the range of work that you're doing on it will actually move to making sure that can happen. So thank you for you and the team for all you're doing around that, Lindy. Is much appreciated, and best wishes that all those recommendations are approved. Thank you. Okay, so it's going to be back to you again, Lindy, for item 5, which is the libraries update.
Thank you. This is the annual update report, which is normally taken in March, but as there were a number of outstanding and unclear items in March, it was delayed until this cycle. Broadly speaking, it's an update on the year's activity that has taken place and making recommendations for the year ahead. I would just like to draw everyone's attention to the Equalities Impact Assessment, which has actually changed since the briefing meeting. What we're looking at now is a greater clarity around each of the recommendations, and there will be separate equalities examinations for each of the recommendations. It was felt that an overall delivery of an impact assessment for the report wasn't appropriate, and so each of them either has a stated impact assessment or one is being developed specific with the project. In terms of the recommendations, to deliver the library's health and wellbeing project, this is funded through Public Health Transformation Fund, and it's a 4-year project to the value of 174k. The City of Stories project, which is the Arts Council England funding that we've referred to, this is shared equally between libraries and archives and the Conan Doyle project. And this is a 2-year project to the value of 140k. Further, to deliver the no fines and reservations fees, which is a 3-year pilot study for the city. Develop and launch the independent public libraries, the independent schools library service and archive website. This will be distinct from the City Council website in order to ensure that we've got a promotional front face for the outreach and the activity that we need to do to promote activity and events. Deliver an evaluation of innovative projects to extend the reach of the Summer Reading Challenge. And we have projects running this summer which will be evaluated and reported on in the autumn. Delivery of universal credit, and that's part of a package for the city. And work with Civica Spiders to develop the work to migrate the archive catalogue to Spiders 10, now quite urgent because the server is very elderly. Development of the archive outreach policy, that's part of our accreditation, and important that we look at how we are outward facing as well as preserving and conserving the record. And explore alternative library management systems for the school's library service, working with their school clients. And I'm sorry, most important, deliver the annual budget savings. And obviously that's a matter in progress.
Thank you very much indeed. Any questions, Councillor Jonas? Put your mic on, Frank. Frank, Mike, can you put your mic on? Thanks.
Yeah, if you can just confirm the 223, the delivery of the no fines, when's that starting? When's the pilot starting? Or has it started?
We've had a soft launch already. It began the 18th of June. It was a soft launch because we weren't confident that the technology was in the right place. We now know it is, and for the beginning of August, we're working with corporate comms for a commercial launch to get the message out there to the community, because we're not only concerned about supporting our existing clients, but using this pilot to encourage more people back to libraries or to libraries for the first time.
Okay, just to add, we had a meeting with DWP this week, and they were very happy with the work around the rolling out universal credit, and absolutely identified the important role that the library service will play in supporting that. So it was good to know that that work is being recognised. And as I mentioned just now, the importance around the Summer Reading Challenge and reaching those communities in the city where we really need to be concentrating our efforts is now going to be our key focus. And there's huge opportunities around that to change outcomes for young people, which I'm sure is something we all absolutely believe in and support. So thank you very much for the recommendations, Lindy. They are approved, and thanks again to you and your team. Just for because we are on the cameras today, just wanted to mention the book awards that I was able to attend recently, and what an inspiring event it was, and to have a theatre full of children all cheering for Dave Percival when he walked up on the stage. It's not very often that city council officers get recognised so publicly and so enthusiastically, and maybe it should happen more often, but on that occasion it was heartwarming to see, and it was a fantastic event, and the enthusiasm from the children was palpable. So well done to you and the team. Okay, item 6 on the agenda today is an update on Wild About Portsmouth, something we all are.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pitt. This is an update on the Wild About Portsmouth project, which focuses attention on the city's extensive collections of natural history and geology. The aim is to improve the documentation and cataloguing of the collection with a view to making it more accessible. And as part of that process, we want to involve as many people as possible. So we've appointed the first of 2 posts. Christine Taylor joined us a month or so ago, and she has been familiarising herself with the collection and recruiting volunteers to start work on various of the collections at a number of locations across the city. So some at Cumberland House, some will be at Portsmouth Museum, and we may have some at the main museum store at Hilsey. So it's a very exciting project that will transform access. It's funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund to the tune of 53% of the total project cost of £152,000. Because it's HLF funded, there are a series of approved purposes that they are expecting us to deliver. These are itemised at paragraph 3.2. Including the 2 new posts. So key activity at the moment is starting to plan the programme of events and activities that will engage a broader audience. Christine's working on the recruitment of the second of the 2 posts. This is a more junior post to actually work with Christine and the volunteers. So it's a 2-year project, obviously very excited. We hope to reveal more about the scientific significance of this collection, because we do think it may be one of the most significant collections that the city holds.
Thanks very much, Jane. Councillor Jones. Excellent. Christine's doing great work already. I know she's incredibly excited about the opportunity to do this on every occasion I meet her. She enthuses about how exciting it is. And the really good news is that the archive appears to be pretty much in very good condition, which is was one thing we weren't sure about, whether there were levels of deterioration while it had been in storage, but apparently it's exceeding expectations in that area, which is great news. And I know she'll be an inspiration for the volunteers to move that project forward. So thank you very much, and recommendations are approved. So that moves us on to item 7 on the report today, and that's the archive digitisation project.
Thank you. Again, I'm now talking for Jackie Painting and other of my colleagues. The digitisation project is part of our move to provide outreach for the archive. What we're looking at here is that there's a real pressure point between the importance of preserving and looking after the original records so that they aren't damaged, so they aren't spoilt, and they are there for posterity, and at the same time encouraging people to be able to access them and use them. We've been very constrained as well by only being able to provide access to the people who can physically come to our buildings. And as we find more and more, particularly as people are investigating their family trees, looking at their early history in a range of ways, and of course there are academic researchers from all over the country and internationally who want to have access. One real opportunity has been our work with Find My Past. It's a procured project to find a provider who would digitise significant parts of the archive. I'll stress that there are some areas that aren't of interest to commercial providers, but the broad areas of greatest interest and greatest significance for the majority of researchers, such as the parish registers, the rate books, the exemption records, crew lists. There's a whole range, including just many records that we're holding that have now been digitised. They're able to do this at no cost to us, and in fact with a fee to us, an initial fee, and the potential for additional income as those records are used. But they've digitised 130,000 images. They have been able to index them. The indexing is still going on for some of the later works. And as each portion of the record is made available, we have a launch. So the next launch is due to be the crew lists, I believe. and we will continue to do this to promote. And it basically means that anyone across the globe has this access, and at the same time they are still available with us. But for the majority of use, we would direct people via the site in order to be able to preserve those initial documents.
Thanks, Lindy. Any questions, Councillor Jonas? It is a great project, and there's no doubt that in 2018 we need to be making sure that we do the most we possibly can to enable people to access information in a very different way than they used to historically, and the vast quantity of stuff that's been able to be digitised is going to be a real advantage for people when they're doing their investigations in future. And of course we do still have the ability for people to access physical archives when appropriate. So thank you very much for bringing that today, and happy to accept that report. Thank you. Okay, item 8 on the agenda. We do have the press with us today. So just for information purposes, we should have exclusion of press and public under when we get to item 9. However, I'm happy to take the report in the open, but we have an exempt appendix in orange, on orange paper, and if Councillor Jonas did wish to refer to that specifically, then we would need to move into exempt accession because there's commercial confidentiality around that at the moment. But just to remind members to be aware of the code of conduct implications if they refer to the exempt appendix during open session. So that said, if that's all right with Councillor Jonas and you're happy to proceed on that basis, then we can look at the report. Is that okay with you? We won't do the exclusion of the press.
If I'm saying anything, it's on the white paper.
Then that's absolutely fine. That's great, and that means the press can stay and you can listen to what's going on with the report. So that means that we can move to item 9 directly. Is that right? Yes, it is. Okay, thank you.
Right, so this is the landing craft tank 7014 project. The project aims to bring a very large landing craft to the vicinity of the D-Day story and to make her publicly accessible for people to go on to. So again, it's a project that is funded by the Heritage Lottery to the tune of just under £5 million. We're waiting, the second round application was submitted in June and we're waiting for the outcome. There's a lot of interest in this project. She's a very rare survivor of D-Day. She's very large. She's going to be quite difficult to manoeuvre because she is so large and she's in quite a delicate condition. But this is a project that everyone, we are very excited about. However, as we've gone through the development of the project and the preparation for the round 2 bid, we have identified 1 or 2 items of risk. These are partly around the developing partnership, which obviously is at quite early stages, but then also some of the elements around the business plan and responsibilities for different costs. There's a short list of recommendations, and we have now contacted the NMRN, the National Museum of the Royal Navy, with a view to getting their views on some of these. Particularly around the maintenance of the vessel and I don't know how the partnership is going to work and what people's views are about that. So if I could actually hand over to Councillor Pitt, who is the author of the letter and has the response, that would make sense. Thank you.
Okay, so obviously I think the most important thing to say is that anything that we do mustn't be holding up the project. So we're trying to make sure that at the same time as the project is moving forward, we're having those conversations with the NMRN to tighten up some of the things that are not as detailed in terms of the governance of the project as they need to be. I have had a letter back from John Rees in response to some of those questions, and I've said to him that I've gone back to him saying that his responses were helpful, but that we need those to be confirmed at the next project board meeting, and we're just waiting for a date with that now because it's the summer. There's various project board members who keep saying they're unavailable. I've seen an endless stream of to and fro emails this week. it's mainly around the maintenance where we moving forward that we need to make sure that that relationship is absolutely locked down and we know where we stand with that and how the sinking fund will interact with that any future maintenance schedule. Some of them are minor things. He's giving clear indications that they can be resolved at the next project board meeting. So the concerns that we did have when the report was drafted are already being addressed, and we are moving towards a conclusion with those. And then once we've got a full answer to those questions and an update, we will come back to a further meeting to make sure that members are fully informed of where we stand. But the alternative was to wait and get all of that sorted, which would have delayed planning applications and moving the bid forward, and we are on a time frame where we need to try and make sure we can get the LCT on site late next year. There's also, because of the trees down there and the issues around those, that we need to know 100% when we're moving, because 6 months out some works need to be done around the conservation of the trees so that they can be relocated. So because all of that was happening, I made the decision that it made more sense for us to continue the dialogue with the NMRN. We went back to them with some of the issues that were identified in the report, and they've already moved in our direction. I think the council works in one way, NMRN works in another way. I think that's fair to say, Jane, isn't it? And it's a case of making sure that we're both on the same page and there's no misinterpretation of what we're saying. So we're getting there, and I would expect within the next couple of months to be able to come back with clarifications on all the outstanding issues. I know Councillor Jonas has visited and seen the craft, and I believe Councillor Morgan's had a conversation with the NMRN this week, and which has also had a positive outcome, but he's not here, so I don't want to preempt anything he might want to say at a future meeting. But I've been very clear that at any point, if either of the Labour or Conservative spokespersons want to sit down for a further briefing and find out more information, we'll keep you abreast of it at every stage to make sure you know what's going on. Any questions, Councillor Jonas?
Yes, Cabinet Member. First of all, we've applied for a Heritage Lottery Fund. Is that correct?
The NMRN have, yes, they're the lead partner. So yes, and that bid went in June. It was the second round bid, and we should hear, I think, in September.
And this is to fund the restoration of it or the removal of it to Stacey?
It funds her conservation and her relocation to Southsea, and it also funds the activity plan that has to run alongside it to ensure that we've got a broad engagement from the people of the city.
Is there a plan B if the Naval Museum people don't get the lottery fund?
I think this is something we have discussed, and I think the view is, and this has been expressed to the Heritage Lottery Fund, that if they were not inclined to fund this project, the only way forward may be to make a record of her and then break her up, which would obviously be a tragedy.
Yeah, it would be, but it's still an option if they don't give us the money or don't give the museum the money, then Portsmouth City Council couldn't possibly fund this themselves.
Well, it's a £5 million project, so I can't. It's not really for me to say if the council has £5 million available. I would have thought not.
We're working on the assumption that this will move forward with the Heritage Lottery Fund. With the NMRN as the lead partner, we are somewhat in their hands, but we're also on that side of things. But at the same time, we've obviously been contributing to that process. I wouldn't want to preempt any outcome, but £5 million is an awful lot of money for the council to consider, and a plan B would need to be worked up at that point. As it stands, I would not sit here and say to you that the council should commit £5 million to this project if the Heritage Lottery Fund are not willing to support it. And also at that point, it will be very unclear as to where the NMRN sat on their stance of things. So we would want to have that conversation at that point.
Understood. The other thing would be, and you mentioned that you'll keep us in the loop, the discussions with them over the maintenance of the vessel, supposing Plan A goes ahead, the landing craft comes to alongside the museum. having worked in the dockyard and worked on ships, they're very hard to work on maintenance-wise once they're set in concrete. It's a permanent fixture. I take it they've gone into this because most of them are then sort of, the double bottoms are filled with concrete, and you just maintain what you can see, the superstructure, because the bottom will eventually corrode. But anyway, that's something you can keep us in touch with.
This is slightly different, I think it's safe to say, because underneath this, when she comes on site, there is a maintenance pit underneath the boat. So instead of it being directly placed on the land with no ability to get underneath her, that won't be the case. And the pit will enable water to drain from the vessel as well, which will reduce corrosion going forward. Jamie, you might have a couple more details because I know you've looked at that, but that's my understanding of where we're at.
Yeah, I do think the NMRN are looking to preserve the vessel in very, very good condition throughout. As far as I'm aware, there's a lot of time and effort has gone into how they're going to conserve her and how they're going to move her. But my understanding is they're looking at the highest possible spec in terms of ongoing maintenance, and that has been costed and budgeted for. It's just that if she proves more delicate than she initially appears. But it's not about filling her with concrete at all, I don't think. And on this occasion, there is a pit beneath her. There will be a canopy over her to protect her from water ingress. I think they're looking to maintain her sort of throughout.
Yeah, it's a very different way of approaching conservation than they may have done in the past. And the pit that exists, from the plans, there are gratings that go around it to fit in around the footprint of the vessel, so that they can get that access underneath, which means that maintenance and any potentially expensive deterioration can be monitored far more closely and spotted before it starts to develop, and that's the maintenance. That's the method of maintenance they want to use. Whereas historically, I think it's fair to say, as you quite rightly raised, Councillor Jonas, that maintenance happened when it was no longer maintenance, but it was actually saving something from collapse. That approach is not what we're looking at here. This is very much an ongoing, because it will be very open and on view to the public and interacting with the public all the time, that there won't be hidden bits that we can't keep an eye on. That's the whole purpose of the maintenance trench.
Thank you. I shall be very interested to see the final details of this 300-foot-long pit that enables you to get underneath it, and who's going to pay for that, but that's something I can wait for. The other thing is that, and maybe minor when we're talking about the money, is that I see in 3.3 the council's contribution is 84,000, 24,000 to relocate the memorial trees, and 60,000 to cover the cost of the conservation of the 2 D-Day tanks. I would love to see a breakdown of that estimate. It seems remarkably high for 2 static exhibits that are basically very heavily armoured, which we know doesn't corrode. And it's just a bit of tin work that they put round them normally to add to a tank. When you look at a tank, the dressings on it maybe, but as we're not going to have them fired up and running, I think £30,000 for each tank to be, shall we say, the cost of conservation seems very high to me, Councillor.
Okay, Jane, would you like to comment?
The costs are based on figures we obtained when we were developing the Transforming the D-Day Museum project, and we had a conservator look at all the large vehicles and the Pickett Hamilton Fort and the anti-aircraft gun on display outside the museum. And those original costs did include things like, I think there was an assumption that originally the tanks would go back to their original position outside the museum, and then the land aircraft tank project has come along. So my understanding is that the 2 tanks will go on to land aircraft tank. The costs, I think there is quite bad. The deterioration of the tanks is quite excessive because of the fact they've been on display outside for some time. We've been talking about whether we can open them up so people can look into them rather than climb onto them, because we're not very keen on the climbing on. And I think the original cost did include some of the interpretation. So you are correct that actually it is quite a generous budget. It's been paid for by the LIBOR funding that the council obtained, but I think that funding will be used to conserve the tanks and assist with their movement onto the Landcraft tank, and also the interpretation of the tank. So I think it will be very well used, but when the time comes, obviously we can share that detailed information with members.
Okay, thank you, Jane. Is that okay with you, Councillor Jonas? Did you want to ask any follow-ups on that?
Just to reiterate, I think it's very...
Okay. So I think I'm very happy to say that at the point where we are moving forward with that, we will make sure that we show a full breakdown of costs and where the money's going. Obviously that bit of it was rolled in with the D-Day story development, so it predates me, but certainly when they become an intrinsic part of this project, then we'll want to be transparent and show what we've used the LIBOR money for. Thank you very much. I don't think there's anything else other than for me to approve those recommendations. And any further questions from Councillor Jonas on anything today?
Everything I've heard has been good news.
I share that sentiment, Frank. Thank you very much indeed. And thanks to officers for their time, and good luck with the project moving forward, and I look forward to joining the project board for the first time as soon as a meeting date can be arranged, so that we can tidy up the last bits of this and make sure that we've got a very good project moving forward that we're all completely confident in. And as I've said before, we will make sure we keep opposition members completely in the loop, and they can approach us at any stage with any questions. Thank you very much.